Hello, I've got a breaking news update for you today. Just last week, on April 17th, a hearing was postponed on the Menendez brothers case. The hearing was scheduled for April 17th and was set to be heard by a judge in Van Nuys, California, but it was delayed as discussions turned to the DA's request for a postponement. There is a disagreement over parts of a risk assessment report generated to discuss expert opinions as to whether or not Erik and Lyle Menendez are still dangerous. The judge has rescheduled this hearing for May 9th. I'd initially planned to bring you this little short episode about the hearing, but it's been pushed back. The Menendez brothers, who are now 57 and 54 years old, plan to argue, along with their attorneys, that the two men have served enough of a life prison sentence for the 1989 shotgun murder of their parents at the family's Beverly Hills mansion. LA County prosecutors have opposed resentencing the brothers, claiming that the men, then young men, killed Jose and Kitty Menendez for a multi-million-dollar inheritance. There is also discussion about one of the prosecutors having to recuse himself from the case. There was a very dramatic day in court. This was a long-awaited hearing, and people were really disappointed to learn that it wasn't going to happen. It had been postponed. Mark Geragos, the well-known attorney, spoke to the press, and he did not mince any words.
The siblings are seeking a path to freedom more than 3 decades after murdering their parents. KTLA's Chip Yost is live at the courthouse with the latest. Hi, Chip.
Hey there, guys. Yeah, this was set up to be a resentencing hearing. We were supposed to hear arguments about whether or not Erik and Lyle Menendez deserved to be resentenced and possibly be released at a later date because of that resentencing. Instead, we got none of that. Instead, there was a lot of arguing over other issues. One of the issues that they argued over, it sounds like, is whether or not the LA County District Attorney should be recused from the case. That is one thing that Mark Geragos, the attorney for the brothers, is now asking for. He's one of the folks that has been speaking back here behind us a few minutes ago. He addressed that issue. Here's more from him.
The family does not want to go through this charade anymore with the DA. They are going to, I anticipate, the motion hasn't been written yet, but given what transpired today and given what's obvious to anyone, I think, who has a couple of synapses that are still firing, this is a DA who made up his mind and did no hard work in terms of his position. He is vindicating no one's interest.
Geragos basically says he believes the DA is biased. One of the reasons he says he believes the DA is biased is what the DA did this morning. The DA showed up here, Nathan Hochman, to talk about this case, and one of the reasons he was asking for this resentencing hearing to be postponed. That is because the Menendez brothers not only have this resentencing hearing going on, they've also been asking the governor for clemency.
When we received that risk assessment, we believed it constituted additional facts that the court should consider in deciding whether or not the Menendez brothers do pose a risk of danger to society. These additional facts are based on a review that the parole board does that is comprehensive. They look at all the records, the prison records, the interview records, the reports in the prison. They talk to various people throughout the prison system about the Menendez brothers, and then they prepared a report that analyzes their view of the comprehensive risk that the Menendez pose of potentially being a danger to society. So we wanted to make sure that the judge got a copy of that report and considered it in connection with this sentencing.
A lot of what Mark Geragos, who represents the Menendez brothers, what he had to say was that Nathan Hochman is biased, the district attorney. Hochman wasn't in court today, but as you saw, as we just heard, he had a news conference outside on the courthouse steps, which really irritated Geragos and the family members. He said, he's showboating. He said this is a dog and pony show. And now he told the judge that he intends to file this recusal motion, which they're going to discuss on May 9th. So the recusal motion basically against the DA's office saying that he wants them off of this case. He believes Nathan Hochman is biased. He specifically mentioned this morning he thinks he's biased because he lived in Beverly Hills. His family did, near the crime scene when it happened. He also said Nathan Hochman attended Beverly Hills High School, where the Menendez brothers attended, and he believes that during that time the community was in fear when the murders happened, and that Nathan Hochman has a personal bias because of his proximity to the crime scene.
What happened with this risk assessment report? Of course, the DA had his own argument that we need to wait and get this risk assessment. And just for the audience, this risk assessment, according to the governor's office, only a portion of it has been done. The rest of it should be finalized by a June 13th hearing they're supposed to have before the parole board. But Hochman wants whatever's done to be introduced, right?
So, like I said, this is going to get really heated. California Governor Gavin Newsom has the option to give the Menendez brothers clemency, but recently stated on a podcast that he feels the decision should be made by the incoming district attorney.
Now we're turning to the Menendez brothers. California Governor Gavin Newsom says he'll leave the decision about their release up to the incoming district attorney. Our chief national correspondent, Matt Gutman, joins us with more. Good morning, Matt.
Hey, good morning, Michael. The brothers petitioned Newsom for clemency late last month, and in his podcast last night, Newsom said the file's on his desk. He's begun reviewing it, but at this point, he thinks the right thing to do would be to kick it back down to LA's newly elected DA and for him to make the decision.
This morning, that setback for Erik and Lyle Menendez.
The Menendez file, which is now a little thicker because we did deeper research in the last 10 days, that's all on my desk. I think it's the right thing to do to hear from the new DA before I make any decisions.
California's governor, who the brothers recently petitioned for clemency, revealing on his podcast that he'll leave it to LA's incoming DA, Nathan Hochman, to decide the brothers' fate.
I think is important under the circumstance, out of respect, not just to him, the new incoming DA, but those that elected him rather overwhelmingly in Los Angeles.
Erik and Lyle have been behind bars for 34 years for the murders of their parents, Jose and Kitty Menendez, at their Beverly Hills mansion.
The governor is waiting until the new DA has a chance to review it. This may allow for another way of release for the Menendez brother without the governor having to step into the legal system, and he may actually prefer that route.
Hochman spoke with Arcana Whitworth, saying he's concerned about how social media could shape perception.
If you decide this case based on just reviewing a Netflix documentary, you're doing a disservice to the Menendez brothers, to the victim family members, to the public.
So that's where we're at for now. I will update you after the May 9th hearing takes place and let you know what happens on that day. But what I really want to know is what you think about this. I love talking to you guys about these cases because you've been following them for as long as I have. Most of us true crime fans are very familiar with the Menendez case. I think this story would have gone very differently if it were tried now. There is very strong evidence that these boys were physically and sexually abused by their father. And that is something we just didn't talk about back in 1989. Now we recognize the impact that type of severe abuse can have on kids. And while we all agree that murder is never the answer, we see victims of that type of abuse in a different light. Does that matter to you? Or do you believe that these men deserve to die in prison? I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts on this and talking with you about it. So that's just a little update on this Friday. Thank you for watching, and I will see you for our regular episodes on Tuesday and Thursday of next week. Have a good weekend, my friends, and take care of yourselves.